The historical period we are going to talk about is the one that followed the death of Queen Mary and her husband, William III, who had ascended the throne after the British Parliament had expelled Queen Mary's father, James II of England, because he had married a Catholic woman and had secretly converted to Catholicism. So, in order to avoid another civil war based on religious conflicts, the parliament decided to ask Mary and her husband, William of Orange, to become joint monarchs on the English throne. But when they died childless, Mary's sister Anne became Queen of England, and during her reign, important events occurred, such as the making of the Royal Society, an association of important scientists, whose most important member was Isaac Newton, who started to research and spread scientific ideas. This event marked the shaping of the English character, so that nowadays we still associate to the English character a tendency to rationalism, religious tolerance, together with an economic enterprise and common sense. When Queen Anne died, she was succeeded by her cousin, George, Duke of Hanover, who became king with the name of George I. George I was a last relative of the Stuart house. Actually, he descended by a cousin of James II, but he didn't speak any English. He had never been to England, and he didn't know anything about English politics. He was offered the crown of England by the English Parliament, and he accepted, but during his reign, the powers of the monarchy diminished because he relied more and more on Parliament for the ruling of the nation. Actually, his first act was to appoint a prime minister. His prime minister was Sir Robert Walpole, and the Council of Ministers, called the Cabinet, started to meet without the presence of the king. In this scheme, you can see the most important kings and queens of the House of Hanover, which started in the 18th century with George I and lasted with the most important of its representatives, Queen Victoria, who reigned from the very beginning of the 19th century until the beginning of the 20th century, and during whose reign Great Britain acquired the leading role of Europe and became the greatest economic powers of the world, and also the greatest empire of the world. During the reign of Queen Anne, the Scottish Parliament voted to be united to England, and giving so origin to a new kingdom called Great Britain. Actually, most Scottish accepted their new role in a kingdom, in this new kingdom, but a minority of them started a campaign, a nationalistic campaign, which gave origin to a Scottish nationalist party that had a renewal of nationalism in the 12th century. If you remember, in 2017, a referendum was held in Scotland where Scottish people were asked if they wanted to leave the Union or not. And the Nationalist Party lost the referendum. During the same period, two new political parties originated from the old parliamentarians and royalists. They were called the Whigs and the Tories. The Whigs were characterized by their support to commercial development, a vigorous foreign policy, and religious toleration. They were supported by the wealthy and commercial classes. The Tories, on the other hand, were for the divine right of the king. They were supported by the Church of England and the landowners, and they were descended of the royalists. This period is also known as Golden Age or Augustan age because it resembled the age of the first Roman emperor Augustus, during which reign the peace and prosperity, wealth, commerce and cultural life flourished. Actually, the key concepts of the 18th century were political stability, individualism, liberal thought and free will, optimism, reason and common sense, desire for balance, symmetry and refinement. These three last key concepts characterized art and architecture, which was inspired by the Italian neoclassicism. Reason and common sense characterized the philosophy. Optimism, liberal thought, and free will characterized politics and economic life. Political stability means that England was able to keep away from conflicts both at home and and abroad. Individualism characterized the typical English character. During this period, the reading public increased. The increase of the reading public in the Augustan age was due to the growing importance of the middle class, the individual's trust in his own abilities, the practice of reason and self-analysis. This led to the fact that most readers were middle-class women who used to borrow books from circulating libraries, or men who met in the coffee houses, which allowed the circulation of news and opinions. The growth of the growing importance of the middle class was due to the fact that both under the government of Sir Robert Walpole and later under the new Prime Minister William Pitt, commerce prospered due to the growing exchange of import and exports from the colonies, which provided raw materials that were manufactured at home and then exported all over the world. Especially Sir William Pitt was in favor of a politics of a mercantilistic policy that favored English exports and imposed taxes on imports. This favored the commerce, and so the middle class became more and more important. The role of the coffee houses was really important in this period. The coffee houses were places attended exclusively by men who gathered there to drink the fashionable drinks of the time, coffee and chocolate. They were composed by common people who were interested in just exchanging gossips and political ideas, but also by fashionable and artistic people who started to write and publish journals and periodicals.